So I'm back in Vancouver after an incredible trip to the Philippines. The experience was so eye-opening and it got me thinking about the big differences between these two amazing countries. One of my viewers suggested that I make a video comparing what it's like to live in both places, and I thought that was a great idea. So in this video, we're going to explore the 10 culture shocks I experienced while moving to Vancouver from the Philippines. What I'm about to share is based purely on my personal experiences and is not meant to generalize Canada or the Philippines, so let's keep it cool. After all, the goal here is to connect over our shared experiences. So without further ado, let's dive in. The first one is going to be a weird start, but after coming back home, I forgot how much I missed having a bidet in my bathroom, or rather washroom, as Canadians like to call them. Yes, I was flushed to find that most washrooms don't have bidets in Canada. Most Canadians rely on the good old tissue paper and water to get to the bottom of things. In the Philippines, however, we usually have this type of bidet that almost looks like a miniature shower head that we use to do our duty. But yeah, not a lot of bidets here, so try to get one and thank me later. Next, I want to talk about the traffic situation in Manila. To be honest, it's notorious for having terrible traffic, and I experienced this firsthand during my visit. I took an Uber ride from Ortigas to my home, which should have been a 45-minute drive, but I ended up being stuck in traffic for 3 full hours. I felt anxious throughout the ride, but I think this may have been a reverse culture shock for me because I'm just used to seeing not a lot of cars on the road in Canada. And the same goes for commuting. In Canada, people usually mind their own business during their commute, but in Manila, I had to remind myself to be more aware of my surroundings. It's not to say that commuting in Manila is less safe, but the surroundings have changed drastically and new developments have contributed to more traffic. Because of that, I had to be more cautious and street smart. Next, have you ever wondered how different grocery and shopping experiences can be between two different countries? In Canada, some grocery stores like Superstore or TNT ask for a deposit before using their shopping carts. To get a shopping cart, you have to put in a loonie or $1, but don't worry, you do get your deposit back when you return the cart to its right place. Another thing I noticed is that Canada has their own self-checkout and no longer uses plastic bags. This means you can scan your items and tuck it away using your own reusable bag, or use the carton boxes available in store to pack away your items. On the other hand, the Philippines still adopts the use of plastic bags, and they even have cashiers per grocery stall to assist you with your items. Canada also accepts digital wallets like Apple Pay or Samsung Pay, and most times I don't even have to bring my physical card out to make purchases. In the Philippines, they have something similar called GCash, but it's only accepted at select supermarkets. Also, I noticed that Costco in Canada and the SNR in the Philippines have very similar features. So it's safe to say that if you're looking to shop for items in bulk, you can find that in both countries. Now at Costco Canada, you can only pay with a MasterCard credit card or a Visa debit card. I only have this one MasterCard from Neo, and I use it every day to earn cash back on all my everyday purchases. Another thing to be aware of are the taxes for the purchase of goods and services. In the Philippines, prices usually include taxes, which means what you see on the tag is what you will pay for at the cashier. But in Vancouver, there's a 5% GST and 7% PST that are added to the price of the products. This means that a $100 item would cost 112 Canadian dollars at the cash register. So for those who are accustomed to all-inclusive pricing, this can come as a shock, and it may take a few seconds of mental calculation to figure out how much you owe. Lastly, I want to talk about the return policy in both countries. When I used to shop in the Philippines, I had to be extra sure about what I was going to buy because return policies there are strict to non-existent. In Canada, on the other hand, you can return or get a refund at most stores within 30 days if you have the receipt. Up next for my favorite segment, let's talk about food. To be honest, when I first moved to Canada, I was worried about missing out on the Asian diet, but I was pleasantly surprised to find that Vancouver has a wide range of Asian food and the best sushi scene by far. I've discovered a lot of popular Japanese sushi and ramen restaurants throughout the city, like Marutama, Jinni, and Ramen Danbo. And Vancouver also has some delicious Korean chicken wings from DK Chicken, you gotta try that out, and also Vietnamese pho and banh mi, perfect for rainy days. And the best part about living in Vancouver is that they also serve some of my favorite Filipino comfort foods like Jollibee, potato corner, shameless buns, Pin Pin, Goldilocks, and Max's chicken, making me feel right at home. On the other hand, and surprisingly enough for me, the food scene in the Philippines is even more diverse with a lot of different options to choose from. They even have a Timmy's there, so you can experience Canada without having to leave. In short, both countries offer a variety of delicious food options that are authentic and high quality, and both places are great to try different cuisines from around the world. Now let me talk about my least favorite part of dining out, the tipping culture. In Canada, tipping is expected in several service-based industries such as restaurants, bars, hair salons, and tattoo shops. The standard tip ranges between 15% to 25% of the total bill, which I find quite high. Personally, I believe that some establishments, for example, milk tea places, shouldn't charge a tip since there's no added value to the experience other than making the milk tea, which I paid for. But don't get that twisted, I'm all for paying servers a fair wage, but hopefully employers can do something about that so that these people don't have to rely heavily on tips. As for the Philippines, tipping is encouraged but not necessary, and people there are more grateful when they do receive tips. Next, let's discuss the concept of time. Ever heard of Filipino time? Well, for those who haven't, Filipino time is a term for the tendency of many Filipinos being late for events or meetings. In the Philippines, it's more common to be more laid back about time and not take being on time as seriously as some other cultures do. In Canada, however, being punctual is highly valued and is seen as a way to show respect towards others. Canadians generally arrive on time for appointments, and tardiness is considered unacceptable. So for my fellow Filipinos out there planning to live in Canada, please keep this in mind. Speaking of time, I also want to bring up daylight savings. In Canada, during daylight savings time, we move our clocks forward by 1 hour in the spring and back by 1 hour in the fall. So this lets us have more daylight in the evenings during the warmer months. On the other hand, because the Philippines sits along the equator, we don't have daylight savings, so you can expect the sun to always rise around 6 a.m. and set at 6 p.m. Moving on, I might as well talk a bit about the weather. We all know that Canada has 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, whereas the Philippines only has 2, hot and hotter. Kidding aside, I often forget how lucky I was to have such an abundance of sunshine in the Philippines. Speaking for people who live in Vancouver, we have brief periods of sunshine from April until about the middle of September, but in between that, there's a lot of grayness, rain, and sometimes snow. And because of that, sunlight is hard to come by, and the lack of sunlight can sometimes mess up with our internal body clock, making us feel sad, tired, and lonely. I try to get around this by buying smart light bulbs that mimic a sunrise. Basically, this tricks my body into waking up at a certain time, and it makes me feel more energetic. Now let's compare Manila and Vancouver's natural attractions. In the Philippines, we're known for our stunning tropical beaches, while British Columbia, the province where Vancouver is located, is famous for its mountains and coastal views. In my opinion, the water in the Philippines feels more inviting and approachable, and I always feel like taking a dip whenever I'm there. On the other hand, whenever I go for hikes in BC, and I highly recommend you do that over spring and summertime, you can literally smell the fresh air, the pine cones, and just bask in the natural beauty of the mountains for hours. I believe that each has its own charm, and it's not fair to pit one against the other because it's like comparing apples to oranges. You just don't do that. Up next, let's talk about the people. I don't know why I said it like that. What I missed most about going back home to the Philippines was how outgoing and warm my family and friends are. Reconnecting with them felt like no time had passed at all. They're very easygoing and put relationships and connections in high regard. On the other hand, people in Canada are polite and respectful, but they do tend to keep you at arm's length. Canadians value their personal space more and keep to themselves, although they are still very friendly and approachable. Most of the solid friendships I've made are from different cities like Edmonton, and other times the people I connect with here are actually international students from all parts of the world. But yeah, it's still very possible to meet people here and actually have a deeper bond with them, so don't assume that the difficulty I had making friends here will be the same for you. Finally, let's cap off this video with a controversial topic, which is all about weed and booze. Long story short, weed, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you call it, is legal here. It's been a legal recreational activity since 2018, and oddly enough, selling cannabis here is actually regulated by the government. You'll see a lot of weed shops at busy streets, especially in the downtown area, and you can even visit one as long as you're 19 years old or above. All I can say is adults are pretty chill about it, and it kind of reminds me of going to the gym in a sense that I know it's always there. I can try it if I want to, but I just don't have time. Moving on to alcohol, and it may come as a disappointment to some, but yeah, the booze game in BC is just not it. You'll be quite disappointed to find out that our alcohol is expensive compared to our neighbors in Alberta and even the US because of the tariffs and taxes. Anyway, that wraps up the 10 culture shocks I experienced moving to Vancouver from the Philippines. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for joining me as I share my personal experiences in living in both countries. And do let me know, what culture shocks have you experienced while moving to a new city or country? It's always refreshing to hear your experience, so feel free to share them in the comments below. But yeah, guys, once again, thank you for watching. Be safe and be kind. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.